जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजना यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजना यमुना तीरावनचारी यमुना तीरावनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजना यमुना तीरावनचारी यमुना तीरावनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र छतर श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र छतर श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री श्री कृष्ण बलराम की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 23, Devahuti's Lamentation, Text number 1. Maitreya Uvacha Pitrabhyam Prasthite Sadhvi Pitrabhyam Prasthite Sadhvi Pitrabhyam Prasthite Sadhvi Patem Ingita Kovida Patimingita Kovida Patimingita Kovida Nityam Pariyacharat Pritya Nityam Pariyacharat Pritya Nityam Pariyacharat Pritya Bhavani Iva Bhavam Prabham Bhavani Iva Bhavam Prabham Bhavani Iva Bhavam Prabham. Maitreya Uvacha Pitrabhyam Prasthite Swadvi Pate Mingita Kovida Nityam Pariyacharat Pritya Bhavani Va Bhavam Prabham. Maitreya Uvacha Pitrabhyam Prasthite Sadhvi Pate Mingita Kovida Nityam Pariyacharat Pritya Bhavani Va Bhavam Prabham. Maitreya Uvacha Pitrabhyam Prasthite Sadhvi Pate Mingita Kovida Nityam Pariyacharat Pritya Bhavani Va Bhavam Prabham. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said, Pitrabhyam, by the parents, Prasthite, at the departure, Sadhvi, the chaste woman, Patem, her husband, Ingitako Vida, understanding the desires, Nityam, constantly, Pariyacharat, she served, Pritya, with great love, Bhavani, the goddess Parvati. Iva, like Bhavam, Lord Shiva. Prabham, her Lord. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Maitreya continued, after the departure of her parents, the chaste woman Devahuti, who could understand the desires of her husband, served him constantly with great love, as Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, serves her husband. Kindly repeat. Maitreya continued, after the departure of her parents, the chaste woman Devahuti, who could understand the desires of her husband, served him constantly with great love, as Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, serves her husband. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The specific example of Bhavani is very significant. Bhavani means the wife of Bhava or Lord Shiva. Bhavani or Parvati, the daughter of the king of the Himalayas, selected Lord Shiva, who appears to be just like a beggar, as her husband. In spite of her being a princess, she undertook all kinds of tribulations to associate with Lord Shiva, who did not even have a house, but was sitting underneath the trees and passing his time in meditation. Although Bhavani was the daughter of a very great king, she used to serve Lord Shiva just like a poor woman. Similarly, Devahuti was the daughter of an emperor, Swayambhuva Manu, yet she preferred to accept Kardama Muni as her husband. She served him with great love and affection, and she knew how to please him. Therefore, she is designated here as Sadhvi, which means a chaste, faithful wife. Her rare example is the ideal of Vedic civilization. Every woman is expected to be as good and chaste as Devahuti or Bhavani. Today, in Hindu society, unmarried girls are still taught to worship Lord Shiva with the idea that they may get husbands like him. Lord Shiva is the ideal husband, not in the sense of riches or sense gratification, but because he is the greatest of all devotees. Vaishnavanam yatha Shambhu. Shambhu or Lord Shiva is the ideal Vaishnava. He constantly meditates upon Lord Rama and chants Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Shiva has a Vaishnava Sampradaya, which is called the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya. Unmarried girls worship Lord Shiva so that they can expect a husband who is as good a Vaishnava as he. The girls are not taught to select a husband who is very rich or very opulent for material sense gratification. Rather, if a girl is fortunate enough to get a husband as good as Lord Shiva in devotional service, then her life becomes perfect. The wife is dependent on the husband, and if the husband is a Vaishnava, then naturally she shares the devotional service of the husband because she renders him service. This reciprocation of service and love between husband and wife is the ideal of a householder's life. Dasa and Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanachalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mokam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamaham mande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Pitrubhyam prasite. Maitreya Vacha is informing. Whom is he informing? He is informing Vidura, because the conversation is happening between Vidura and Maitreya Rishi near Haridwar. So what happened after the marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti, the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu? In the previous chapter, it is mentioned that after Swayambhuva Manu and his wife Shatarupa, they got their daughter Devahuti married to Kardama Muni. Then they came back to their capital, Barhishmati, and there how Swayambhuva Manu carried on his life in devotional service to Krishna is described. So, and the chapter ended with how Swayambhuva Manu, he perfectly engaged his long lifespan of 71 yugas in constantly remembering Vasudeva, Krishna, and thus he perfected his life. With that, the previous chapter ended. Now, what happened to the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu who married Kardama Muni? Now, Maitreya Rishi is coming back to that. So, he is saying, he is going back to what happened. Pitrabhyam prasthite. After the marriage of Devahuti with Kardama Muni, her parents, that is Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa, they returned. Pitrabhyam prasthite. So once her parents had returned, now Devahuti was left with her husband Kardama Muni in the ashram of Kardama Muni. So until that point of time, Devahuti had been the princess, the daughter of a great emperor. Naturally, the father must have been very loving to his daughter and taken all care of her needs, ensured that there were servants for everything. She wouldn't have to do anything by herself. So all facilities would have been there in the palace because her father was the emperor. Anything she wished for could easily be obtained. But now, she had married a sage, a Muni who was living in a hermitage in the forest. He was not living in the city. He was not living in a palace, a small thatched cottage. You can imagine the kind of opulent, lavish palace in which Devahuti would have been living. Huge palace, big rooms, and surrounded by lots of servants to carry out her bidding. Now she has to live in a small thatched roof cottage and no servants. So how did she carry herself? What did she do? Pitrabhyam prasthite sadvi pritya nityam patim pariyacharat ingita kobida. So, Pitrabhyam prasthite, once the parents left, Ingita Kovida Sadvi, Sadvi, the chaste woman, Devahuti, Ingita Kovida, she could understand all the requirements of her husband, Kardama Muni. So, Ingita means, Ingita Kovida, Prabhupada translates as understanding the desires. She did not have to wait for her husband to ask for something. She understood his desires. And simply by understanding his desires, what did she do? Ingita Kovida Sadvim Patim Pritya Nityam Pariyacharat. So Nityam Pariyacharat, she constantly served her husband, Pati. Just without waiting for his instructions or his asking for anything, she would be there, Pariyacharat, to render service to him. Pariyacharat means, the word Pariyacharana means actually rendering menial service, not even just service. We can render service in various ways. But she rendered menial service. That means carrying out even the most menial tasks, like cleaning the ashram, washing the clothes, washing the utensils, all menial services she was engaged in. She would probably never in her life have done all that in the palace. But she did all this, and she did all this how Ingita Kovida. Kardamumani did not have to tell her anything. She understood and she started taking responsibility and doing things herself. Actually, in any relationship between a superior and a subordinate, when there is question of service, one class of service is that the superior person, the master, he desires something. And the servant understands without the master having to tell anything, oh, this is what the master likes, and he will do it without the master having to tell. That is a first class servant. Second class servant means master has to tell, oh, I want this, do this for me, do that for me. So that is second class. Third class means the master will ask and the servant will still not do. So Devahuti was the first class servant to her husband. Why? Because Ingita Kovida. She did not have to wait for any instructions. She clearly understood the desires of Kardamumani and she served him. And she very readily, without any hesitation, Nityam Pariyacharat. Pariyacharat means she rendered menial service to her husband. And how? Not that once in a week, weekly off, and morning 9 to 5, after that break, afternoon break, and then evening, that's all, and wind up everything. Like we have experience in this world, right? Everybody now, they want, initially people were working 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday, and Sunday would be break. Then slowly, the 5-day culture has come into force. Monday to Friday people will work, Saturday, Sunday off. Now people have started saying that it should be 4 days. 4 days people should work and 3 days they should have leave. So not like that. Nityam Pariyacharat, without a break, without a holiday, without a vacation. Devahuti served her husband 24/7. And the kind of service that she rendered, what was the motivation? Was it that in the Vedic times, women were suppressed and oppressed and they were forced? They had no other choice. Devahuti, a poor woman, she had to reconcile to her fate and what to do. This is my fate and let me do whatever is possible. In a frustrated way she was doing. No. Preetya Pariyacharat, with great love and affection, she served her husband. And the example is given just like Bhavani Prabhum Bhavam. Just like Bhavani, Parvati Devi, how she serves Prabhum Bhavam, her master, her husband, Lord Shiva. Bhavani or Durga or Parvati, she is the controller of material nature. The entire material nature is fully under her control. All the opulences of material nature are at her disposal. But still, even though she has access to all the opulences in this material world, although she was the daughter of a great king, still she chose to be the wife of Lord Shiva, who doesn't even have a proper house to live in. At least Kardamumani had a thatched cottage. Lord Shiva doesn't have even that. He will be living either under a tree or in the mountain, Kailasa. No house for him, no this one. He doesn't even have a cottage. Durga chose to live with, chose to marry Lord Shiva. She could have married any great devata, any demigod she could have married, whomever she wished to. But no, she chose Lord Shiva. Why? Because Lord Shiva is a great devotee of Krishna. Vaishnavanam yatha Shambhuhu. There is no greater Vaishnava devotee of Krishna than Lord Shiva. So therefore, she loved Lord Shiva and served him willingly, out of her own volition. In fact, in her first, first life as Sati, she was the daughter of Daksha Maharaj, and Daksha Maharaj asked her, whom do you want to marry? And she said, I want to marry Lord Shiva. She was not forcibly married off. She chose on her own to marry Lord Shiva. And then, of course, the fight between Lord Shiva and Daksha happened, and then Sati gave up her body. And she was born again. Again she chose in her next life, again she chose Lord Shiva only as her husband. So she eternally wants to be the wife of Lord Shiva, and she wants to serve him because she loves him so much, Lord Shiva being a great devotee. Similarly, like Lord Shiva is a great devotee, similarly Karada Mumuni is also a great devotee. Such a great devotee that he did tapasya and Lord Vishnu appeared personally in front of him. So Karada Mumuni is exactly like Lord Shiva, he is also a great devotee. So like Parvati, Devahuti is also a great chaste lady who desires only to associate with Karada Mumuni, who is again a great devotee. And just like Durga or Parvati, she kept aside all her considerations of her being a great queen, a great princess and all those kind of things. She voluntarily, she desired to take up the austere life which Lord Shiva lives in. Similarly, Devahuti also voluntarily, she accepted Karada Mumuni. And as we have seen in the previous chapter, Devahuti had heard of Karada Mumuni's great wonderful qualities from Narada Muni. And that is how she wanted to marry Karada Mumuni, and knowing, having heard from his wife, Swayambhu Manu, having heard from his wife that Devahuti wants to marry Karada Mumuni, he brought her and handed her over to Karada Mumuni. So even Devahuti also, out of her own volition, she also desired to marry Karada Mumuni because he was a great devotee, and that is how she married Karada Mumuni. And she served him. She rendered all kinds of menial service with great love and affection, Pritya. So Prabhupada says that this example of Karada Mumuni and Devahuti and the example of Lord Shiva and Durga is an ideal example of family life in Vedic civilization, where the husband is a greatly qualified devotee of Krishna, and the woman, the wife, is very chaste and she lovingly serves the husband. The husband is engaged in serving Lord Krishna, and the wife serves the husband in his service to Lord Krishna. Thus, both of them benefit spiritually, and both of them progress nicely in going back to Godhead. So, we have to understand that in the Vedic civilization, although there is mention of service of different classes of people to different kinds of people, whether it is the son serving the parents, or the wife serving the husband, or the disciple serving the spiritual master. So we see that this mood, this spirit of service is inculcated very firmly in the Vedic civilization. Everyone is expected to serve some superior or the other, either as a son to one's parents, or as a wife to a husband, or as a disciple to a spiritual master, or as a citizen to the king. Everybody has got some allocated duty or the other to perform, service to perform to someone else. This is very strongly embedded in the Vedic civilization. Modern day, that spirit of service is not there. The society encourages people, you become free, you do whatever you want to do, don't depend on anyone else, don't listen to anyone else, your parents should not decide what you should do, you, whatever your heart dictates, you should follow, etc., etc. So in the modern civilization, people are taught, don't serve anybody, you only serve your own body and senses. Whatever your mind dictates, you serve that. But in the Vedic civilization, it was not like that. Vedic civilization, the spirit of service was inculcated very firmly. It was embedded into the culture of the society. Why? Because that way one will be able to control the mind and the senses. It's not that whatever the mind and the senses dictate, one can freely follow after that. We do not become a slave of our senses and our desires which are concocted by the mind. We have certain duties to perform, we have certain service to perform to one's superiors, and that spirit of service will keep us in check with respect to our desires for sense gratification. That way the whole society can function harmoniously, and everybody can live peacefully and progress spiritually. This was the whole mood of the Vedic civilization. But in that mood of service also, Vedic civilization, it was very properly understood that the basis of such service cannot be oppression or forcing somebody to do that service. That will not sustain. If we make a rule, make a law, and say you have to do this, some people may follow for some time, but all people will not follow for all time. There will always be people who will break the law. Just like we see in this country also, in every country. In every country we have many, many laws. We have courts, we have police, we have military, we have so many mechanisms to enforce those laws upon the society. But still, everywhere, in every country, in every city, there will be criminals and there will be people who will break the law. So, even though the law is enforced, people will break the law. So, by force, you cannot make the person follow all the rules and regulations very strictly. Not possible. For some time, the person may follow because of being forced to do it. But after some time, somewhere or the other, when an opportunity arises, the person will break the rule. This is the natural tendency. Therefore, in Vedic civilization, the basis was not forceful implementation of the rules and regulations of Varnashrama Dharma. The rules and regulations, the spirit of service to one's superior was not based on simply force. Like it is mentioned here, she, Devahuti, served her husband, Pariyacharat, she rendered menial service to her husband, although she had been born as a princess. Unhesitatingly, she, very happily, she rendered menial service to her husband. Why? What was the basis? And not only did she render menial service, Nityam Pariyacharat, constantly 24 hours, 24/7, 365 days a year, without a break, she rendered service. What was the basis? The basis was not force, the basis was not oppression, the basis was not some fear of some repercussions if she did not serve her husband. Oh, if I don't serve my husband, if I leave my husband, society will reject me, they'll treat me as outcast, people will scold me, my parents will reject me. Those were not the considerations. The consideration was pritya, out of love. So without love and affection, there cannot be service. Service cannot sustain. If you show a pistol at a person and tell you to serve me, that person will, naturally he has no choice, so he will serve. But the moment he gets an opportunity, he will run away. He will not be doing it with with full motivation and enthusiasm. He'll be waiting, when can I run away? So force will not work. But if there is love, then nobody has to chain you to that service. Even if somebody entices you to leave that service, you will not leave. So we have to understand that the basis of service, if it has to be sustainable, has to be love and affection. Without that, it cannot sustain. So even in devotional service, when we are rendering devotional service to Krishna, bhakti, when we speak of bhakti, devotion to Krishna, it means devotional service. Because the root of the word bhakti is bhaj dhatu. So this bhaj dhatu entails activity. So without activity, there cannot be bhajana. Therefore, bhakti means devotional service. Service to whom? To Krishna. Now, in that devotional service to Krishna, we have to do so many things. We have to get up for Mangalarati every day. We have to chant 16 malas. We have to attend Bhagavatam class. We have to read Prabhupada's books. We have to follow Ekadashi fasting. Soon, another 1.5 months, Janmashtami is coming. So we will have to fast the whole day till midnight. And next day morning again fasting for Prabhupada's Vyas Puja. So many rules and regulations we have to follow. The 4 regulative principles we have to follow. By nature, all of us like to break the 4 regulative principles. But then in devotional service, if we have to progress in devotional service, We have to follow all these rules and regulations. So this devotional service, when it comes to devotional service, also when we render devotional service, even though we are on the stage of sadhana bhakti, unless the basis of the devotional service is love and affection for Krishna, it will not sustain. That is why sadhana bhakti is explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And in explaining the process of sadhana bhakti, Srila Rupa Goswami states, Nanopachara kritam pujanam artabandhoho. Krishna is known as Artabandhu. He is the only real well-wisher, the person who can help all those who are artha, those who are distressed. Actually, everybody in this world, material world, is distressed due to some problem or the other in life. Therefore, the only person who can relieve everyone permanently of all their material distresses is Lord Krishna. So, Artabandhoho of the Supreme Lord Krishna, who is the real benefactor and real well-wisher of all the living entities who are distressed in this material world, Nanopachara kritam pujanam. When we render devotional service to him in sadhana bhakti, Nana upachara, we have to engage in so many rituals. Mangalarati, Arati we have to do, we have to offer bhoga to him, we have to engage in fasting, we have to follow the 4 regulative principles, then we have to hear Bhagavatam every day. So many upacharas are there involved in devotional service. So, Nanopachara krita pujanam. So, in worshipping Lord Krishna, there are so many rituals to be followed. And all those rituals, when a devotee is performing, how is he supposed to perform? Even in sadhana bhakti, premnaiva bhakta hridayam sukha vidrutam syat. Even the sadhaka is supposed to render all those activities with love and affection to Krishna. And when he renders such devotional service to Krishna with love and affection, willingly, voluntarily, not that, oh, I am forced to do this, I am forced to get up for Mangalarati, I am forced to chant 16 malas, today is Ekadashi, I am forced to fast, because in the ashram they will not anyway make anything grains. So, not with resentment. Service not with resentment. Service with love and affection. Prem naiva. With love and affection, when one follows all the rules and regulations of bhakti, what happens is, Bhakta hridayam sukha vidrutam syat. We experience great bliss, actual transcendental bliss, spiritual happiness we will start experiencing. Actually, this is true. If we soulfully chant our 16 malas of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, whole day we will feel so happy. We will feel we are flying. We will feel constantly high. As they said in that poster in the hippies, when they were advertising for Prabhupada's this one, Sankirtan, they said, stay high forever. You don't need drugs. Without drugs, you can remain high. Actually, it's a fact. If we chant soulfully all our 16 malas, whole day we'll be feeling so happy. And that happiness is not some material happiness. It is spiritual happiness, transcendental happiness. It is the real bliss which we are touching. So, Srila Rupa Goswami gives a very good example. How is this? How does this work? He says, Yavat should asti jatare jaratha pipasa. Yavat should asti. As long as kshud means hunger. And as long as we have hunger, and jatare jaratha pipasa. And as long as we have pipasa, we have thirst. As long as we have hunger and we have thirst, tavat sukhaya bhavato nanu bhakshya peye. So as long as we have hunger and thirst, bhakshya, when we have hunger, bhakshya, food to eat, is very pleasing. And pipasa, as long as we have thirst, peye, we get something to drink, we'll feel very happy. So as long as there is hunger, you go on eating, you'll feel happy. As long as there is thirst, you go on drinking some nice watermelon juice or something like that, you'll feel happy. So the happiness you experience when you eat something or when you drink something is proportional to the amount of hunger and thirst you feel. If there is no hunger, there is no thirst, somebody comes and offers you something, you'll say, no, yaar, my stomach is full. and I have no thirst, so not now, maybe later. But if the person forces you, no, you have to eat it, otherwise this, that, and all those kind of things, what you will do? Forcing what to do, let me eat. So when you eat like that, you will not feel any happiness. But if you have hunger and thirst, when you eat and drink, you'll feel great happiness. Similarly, to experience happiness and bliss in rendering nanopachara kritam pujanam, when we engage in various activities worshipping Lord Krishna in the temple, if we have to experience sukha vidrutam sat, if our heart has to melt in happiness, what is required? Prem naiva. The essential ingredient is love for Krishna. If that love is not there, one will not feel happiness in rendering devotional service. Just like a person without hunger and thirst, if he tries to eat and drink something, he will not feel happiness. Similarly, if a devotee engages in sadhana bhakti without love and affection, simply on the account of fear that, oh, what will my temple commander say? What will the temple president say? What will others think of me? So out of social fear, out of fear of chastisement, if we render our services, then we will not feel happiness in that service. We have to voluntarily feel for our service. We have to feel that love for Krishna. And then with that love, we have to voluntarily serve Krishna. Then what happens is, we will automatically feel bliss in that service. So love and affection is the basis of everything, even our sadhana bhakti, as well as any relationship in this material world. So if it has to function, if it has to sustain, then love is the essential ingredient without which no relationship can sustain, no service can sustain. So therefore, as devotees, we should understand from this particular verse that even though we may be engaged in the most menial services to Krishna in the temple, we may be wiping the floor, we may be washing the pots, we may be doing some cooking, some simple menial service may be doing. But if we are doing it with love and affection, we will find great happiness in that. If that essential ingredient of love is not there, what will happen? In our heart, resentment will come. Why every time I am only told to do this service? Why I only have to wipe the floor? Why I have to adjust the mics? Why somebody else cannot do? That devotee is free, no? Why this Prabhu doesn't tell him to do? Why I am not given some? See, that devotee is given big service. Why I am not given that service? So all these kind of comparisons will take place in the heart when the essential ingredient of love is missing. Comparison starts then. If our heart is filled with love for Krishna, then there is no comparison. We don't start comparing. Just like a mother, every mother loves her child, isn't it? So she takes care of her child very nicely. Now, if that love is not there for the child, the mother will start thinking that why I only have to wash the child, bathe the child every day. Let the father do, no. Let the auntie do, let the uncle do, let somebody else do. And then she will look at somebody else's child. Why, if that child had been mine, it would have been so nice. No mother thinks like that. Why? Because every mother loves her child. If the mother doesn't love the child, she cannot take care of the child. So the mother is also serving the child. She is bathing the child, she is cleaning the stool, urine, all these kind of things she is doing, most abominable things. You cannot do anything more menial than this, to clean the stool and urine of a person. But the mother is happily doing, no. She is not thinking, oh, I have to wash the baby stool and urine. Is this some service for me? I am so educated. I have done PhD. I am the CEO of the so-and-so company. Will the mother think like that? No. She will personally take care of the child because love. Similarly, for a devotee also, so a mother doesn't compare that, okay, that person, that woman has got such a nice child. If only I had got that child, she will never think. So similarly, a devotee also, when whatever service is assigned to him, if he has to render it happily, then love has to be there. He has to accept it as personal service to Krishna and do. And if that is not there, then comparison will start. Comparison is starting means it's not the problem with the service, it's the problem in my heart. I don't have love for Krishna. I'm not rendering my service with love and devotion. So therefore, we should be very careful in our heart. We should be very observant of our heart. The moment we start in our heart, in our mind, comparisons start taking place about other devotees' services and my services, we have to understand that essential ingredient of love is missing in my service. So it's a great indication for us to correct ourselves. Otherwise, we'll never be satisfied no matter what service is given to us. So when we are engaged in the temple, we are assigned services. We are not assigned jobs. We are not here doing jobs. We are rendering service. Service means basis of service always has to be love and affection. Otherwise, service will not sustain. Therefore, in whatever service is assigned to us, we have to learn to become satisfied with that service on the basis of love. Otherwise, no matter what service is given, we will never be satisfied. Therefore, that is a secret. Just like we can see how Devhuti was never dissatisfied. She is the daughter of a great emperor. She is living. All her life she has lived in a palace with so many unlimited servants at her beck and call. But now she has to do paricharya to the Kardama Muni. She has no resentment in the heart. Nityam pariyachara. She constantly served Kardama Muni, Pritya, because of love and affection. She did not compare that, oh, this princess married that king, this queen, she is living so happily. My mother, she married Swayambhuva Manu, she is living in great opulence, and look at my mother, she put me in one rishis where I have to, hermitage where I have to do everything, cleaning the floor, washing the clothes, washing the vessels, cooking, everything I have to do myself. She did not compare. She was very happy. Why? Because she got an opportunity to serve a person whom she loved. So, service is always treated as an opportunity, not as a liability, if it is on the basis of love. So, therefore, all our services, assigned services, we have to learn to render them happily, peacefully, and in a satisfied way, without comparison, because then our heart, we can understand that we are developing our love for Krishna, and that is the right mood of devotional service. Then our devotional service will sustain. Otherwise, we are in danger because our devotional service will not sustain. So I'll stop here. If there are any questions or comments, we can discuss.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, in 9th canto, Prabhupada mentions that any living entity falls from spiritual world will take birth first as a Brahma and then he degrade to another species. Does that mean that all the living entities who are falling from spiritual world to material world, they'll take first as a Brahma and then they take another species of life?
Well, we have to understand, see, this concept of falling down is not very easy to understand. It's not that every day, every second, somebody keep falling from the spiritual world to the material world. It's not like that. Like in this material world, somebody keeps dying, somebody keeps taking birth. Every second, how many people all over the world are taking birth? Every second, some 3 births or 5 births or 6 people are, something like, some figure is there. So many people are taking birth every second all across the world. So like that, every second, so many people are falling from the spiritual world. It's not like that. It is said that all the living entities in this material manifestation, they are all Nitya Baddha. Eternally, they have fallen down. You cannot trace out the point of time when the living entities have fallen down. But we have fallen down. At some point of time, we have fallen down. But we cannot trace that back. It is so long back. The living entity is called eternally fallen. So, we cannot conclude that therefore, because Prabhupada says in one place, if Prabhupada says in any place that the living entity, when he falls down as Brahma, that means every second some Brahma is taking birth, he must be a living entity fallen from the spiritual world. Not like that. We don't take it like that. So, this is generally what it happens like that, but not necessarily it has to be like that every time. Just like Jaya and Vijaya, when they fell down, they did not take birth as Brahma, they took birth as big asuras. So, everything is contextual. How the living entity fell down, for what, whether it was a leader of the Lord, so many things come into play. So, these are all things which are very difficult to comprehend and understand, because currently we have no experience of anything which is eternal. In our experience, everything is temporary. There is a start time, there is a stop time for everything. Everything takes birth and everything dies. Nothing has been eternally existing like that. So therefore, for us to comprehend, when we speak of eternal concepts, eternal realities, it becomes difficult for us to comprehend and absorb. So anyway, these are all not very important things which will affect our spiritual life in any way. So it's not really important to know these things, whether the jiva fell down as a Brahma or some Rishi or Devata, or what did he fall down. How does it matter? Because we are already fallen. We are sinking in this ocean. We are drowning in this ocean of material birth and death. What is more important for us, to get out of this ocean where we are drowning, or to figure out how we fell down? So it's more important to get out of this place. It doesn't matter how we fell down. Okay. Anything else?
So that second question is in 10th canto, starting of Prabhupada mentions that in purport, that any living entity wants to go back to Godhead. So at that time, he'll be put into the another universe where Lord takes his, he performs his Leela in another universe. So Prabhupada says that he will participate in the Leela, and then after that, he'll go back to Godhead.
Yes.
So how to understand that?
That's just that when we perfect our life, when we become pure devotees, to get further trained up in our devotional service, in our Swarupa. Suppose I have a Swarupa as a cow in Goloka Vrindavan. Now, how do cows behave with Krishna? I have to get trained, no? So I take birth wherever Krishna is performing his Leelas in one of the material universes. There I will take birth as a cow and enter in amongst all the cows, and how all the cows are dealing with Krishna, I'll get trained up. So when I go to the spiritual world, I'll be very, naturally I'll be able to fit into the whole my role in serving Krishna there. Otherwise, how do I get trained up? Okay, I developed love for Krishna, I remembered who I am in the spiritual world, but I've forgotten how to serve him. No, just like, suppose you learned, let us say, cycling in your childhood. Then for 20 years you did not cycle. Now again you want to start cycling. What you have to do? You have to get trained by somebody again, so that you will be able to remember how to cycle, and you will be able to pick up, and then you can continue cycling, isn't it? So you need to be trained. So similarly, that's a crude example. So similarly, before we go back to the spiritual world, when we develop Krishna Prema, we remember who we are in the spiritual world. But then, although I know who I am in the spiritual world, when I go there, how do I relate with Krishna? How do I serve him? Because it's not just that I am there and Krishna is there in the spiritual world. There are innumerable other people. There is Nanda Maharaj, there is Vasudeva, there is Nanda Maharaj, there is Yashoda Maiya, there is the Radharani and all the gopis. So many people are there. Now, how do I relate with all of them also? Understand, no? So therefore, I take birth in that particular earth where Krishna is performing his Leelas. There for a short period of time I get trained, then I go back to the spiritual world. Is that okay? Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I came across Yoga Maya and Yoga Nidra in Prabhupada's books. Can you please explain what is Yoga Maya and Yoga Nidra, Prabhu?
Yoga Maya is one of the energies of Krishna. Krishna has basically three energies. What is that? The Antaranga Shakti, the Bahiranga Shakti, and the Tatastha Shakti. So the Antaranga Shakti of Krishna is his internal energy, which is responsible for manifesting and arranging things for Krishna's service in the spiritual world. And the Bahiranga Shakti creates and organizes the material world where all the conditioned living entities are put here. So the Prakriti, the material nature which is working within this material manifestation is the external energy of Krishna. Similarly, in the spiritual world also, there are various things. The spiritual universe also has to be conducted. There also, the sun has to rise every day, sun has to set every day to create that environment of day and night, so that accordingly, Yashoda Mai can serve Krishna. She can put Krishna to sleep when it becomes night, and then when it becomes morning, she can wake him up. Although the spiritual world is always full of light because of Krishna's effulgence, artificially, day and night are created in the spiritual world. In this material world, there is full darkness because of ignorance in this material world. Artificially, we have to create a sun to create light in this material world. In the spiritual world is the reverse. Artificially, night has to be created. So that is done by Yogamaya. So in the spiritual world, whatever arrangements are there, whatever activities are there, all those things are carried out for the pleasure of Krishna by the arrangement of Yogamaya, which is the Antaranga Shakti of Krishna. Now, the living entities, they are the third energy of Krishna, which is called Tatastha Shakti. Tatastha Shakti means marginal energy, because the living entity can be either under the control of Yogamaya or Mahamaya. Mahamaya is the Bahiranga Shakti, the external energy of Krishna. So therefore, the Jiva is called marginal energy because it can be under the control of internal energy or the external energy. These are fundamentally the three energies of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Now, when it comes to Yoga Nidra, what it refers to is when Mahavishnu has to create this material manifestation, he lies on the causal ocean and he lies down on Ananta, and you can see he is sleeping. His eyes are closed. So, although Mahavishnu is sleeping, and he is sleeping and he is dreaming. What is Mahavishnu dreaming? He is dreaming of creating this material manifestation. So we also have similar experience. When we go to sleep at night, we dream. In our dream, we create so many things. We create a big kingdom. I become a king. There are so many subjects. We create a world in our dream. But when we wake up, we find that the dream is non-existent. It is only in our mind it is concocted. It has no factual existence. But when Vishnu dreams, it becomes a reality. And so this material world gets manifested. So his nidra, his sleep and his dream are not like our sleep and our dream. Our sleeping is conducted by the mode of ignorance, by tamoguna. And therefore, when we are dreaming, we forget our original position. We forget the reality. In my mind, in my sleep, when I am dreaming that I am a king, I forget who I am in this material, in reality, in my wakeful state. In my wakeful state, I may not be a king. I may be a servant of a king. But in my dream, I forget all that. So, nature of dreaming in this material world is that we forget the reality. Whereas, Vishnu, when he sleeps and when he dreams, he does not lose connection with reality. He continues to be aware of his position as the Supreme Lord. And therefore, his nidra is not a nidra like ours. Our nidra is conducted by the mode of ignorance. Whereas Vishnu's nidra, his sleep, is conducted by Yogamaya. And therefore, to differentiate our sleep and Vishnu's sleeping, his sleeping is called Yoga Nidra. Because it is conducted by Yogamaya, and although he is sleeping, he is fully aware and conscious of whatever is happening. That's the difference between his sleep and our sleep. Is that okay? So we'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.